DC vs. Vampires All Out War tells an alternate storyline of the survivors after the vampires took over the entire world. Today we're going to get into it. It was a quiet night in Bloodhaven as Nightwing gets some much-needed rest. But in the middle of the night, his phone rings, and his sister Melinda says that she hopes she isn't bothering him. But how comfortable is he with vampires? Nightwing laughs. I've spent my whole life in a cave with a man dressed as a bat, so I have a handle on the lifestyle. Melinda tells him that that's a relief, that there have been rising crime issues between the vampire factions of Bloodhaven, and she's been asked to mediate. But a badge of office isn't going to protect her if things go airy. Nightwing tells her not to worry. You won't be doing it alone. So later, Nightwing and Melinda are walking through Bloodhaven Cemetery when they spot a brightly lit dinner in the middle of it. Right. This place looks like an entirely normal Bloodhaven business and is no way a front. You're totally buying me a waffle on the way out. As they walk in, a young vampire jumps off her stool telling him that her name is Teague. She works for Mary, and if they don't mind following her. Teague leads the two into the back. She opens up a fridge and it reveals a hidden staircase leading underground. She then tells the cook to go ahead and close the shop. They're gonna be busy for a bit. Melinda begins to walk down, telling her that this is remarkable. She had no idea, and Teague says it's cool, isn't it? Topsiders mostly don't get to see these places, so Queen Mary is showing a great deal of trust here, Miss Zuko. Teague laughs. Melinda says that she understands and acknowledges their trust. They have her word that she is only here to help. Teague laughs. Ha! Cool. So welcome. As the large wooden doors at the end of the staircase open up, it reveals a large stone ballroom, and Nightwing says that this is way nicer than the Batcave. Teague leads the two of them to another set of doors guarded by another vampire. These vampires welcome Nightwing and Melinda inside, and as they go in, they're greeted by Queen Mary. The other vampires there state that they shouldn't be alarmed. They're happy that they could have joined the festivities, especially Nightwing. After a little back and forth, they explain the purpose of being here. Queen Mary and her progressive ways are threatening the entire vampire way of life. Nightwing is the protector of Bloodhaven. Would he extend his protection to them as well? Nightwing asks, isn't that why you brought Mayor Zuko here? She has more power than me But Pandora stops him. Our immediate request is a little beyond her reach. To unite our people, we must remove what poisons them. We need Mary, the false queen, dead. Nightwing's a little stunned at the request. That's not happening. I'm not gonna kill anyone just to settle a dispute. If there's a disconnect between your and Mary's ideals, we can talk it out. We tried that, but we will not live lesser than humans. Mary and her brood have forgotten this. And you seem to have forgotten that I'm human, and so are many of my friends. Pandora raises her arms and tells him, that is true, for now. But down here, we have numbers, and we have your secrets. Nightwing scoffs. You're resorting to blackmail, traps, and brute force? You really are old Bloodhaven. This meeting's over. But before anyone could respond, Nightwing sweeps the legs out of a vampire to begin his escape. And then he turns back to Melinda and he notices that she isn't trying to leave. She wishes that there had been a better way. But she knows what family means to him. He made himself easy to manipulate. She did tell Pandora that this little ruse wouldn't do any more than get him here, though. Let's get this over fast, brother. Nightwing stares for a moment before he realizes what is going on. Of course they know his identity. He then begs Melinda not to do this. Don't fight him. Let him leave. She waves her finger, telling him, of course, he wouldn't be fighting her. He'd be fighting all of them. A dozen of vampires begin to jump into the main hall. Nightwing grabs a torch and snaps it in half, getting to work slaying any attacking vampire. And as body after body drops to the floor, there is only one question running through his head. Who will feed his dog in the morning? The vampires ravage Nightwing with attacks. Melinda says that that's enough, and the vampires give her an opening. She tells him that the earth on which he lies has accumulated over centuries, one handful of home soil from each who joins their eternal family. It makes any vampire stronger in this sacred room. You become stronger than anywhere else, and they'll go collect his earth once this is all and done. She reaches down to him, telling him that she knows. She knows. And in his moment of defeat, Pandora kneels down, biting into his neck. A few seconds later, the vampires all begin to step back with horrified looks as Melinda asks, "What is it?" Nightwing stands up with his stake driven through Pandora's chest, and Melinda asks, "What did he do?" She was the oldest, the strongest of them. "I had no choice, but I was too late. I couldn't stop it from happening." As the fangs finish growing from Nightwing's mouth, he looks back and asks, "Where is Mary, Queen of Blood?" And that's the conclusion of the Nightwing origins. Now we're going to bring you issues 1 through 6 of the Deathstroke storyline, in which he teams up with quite a few surprising individuals. The Swiss Alps. Snow falls from the darkened sky as Deathstroke, Damage, and Blue Devil step off their plane. They walk through the darkness of a nearby cave, moving through the network of tunnels until they finally find what Deathstroke was looking for. The bubbling pit of greenish liquid known as the Lazarus Pit. "My God, it's real," he whispers, turning back to Blue Devil, motioning to the pack on his back. "All right, Devil, let's get him ready." Devil nods, pulling out the body of Batman, once again questioning if they should be doing this. Should they be reviving Batman? But Deathstroke knows the dangers, but he also knows that the only way to defeat a world of vampires is with Batman. It's at that moment that something moves out of the shadows, and Azrael jumps out, grabbing Damage by the neck, biting deep into him. "At last, I'd almost given hope," dropping Damage's body deep into the crevasse of the caves. He's then flanked by vampire knights who rush at Deathstroke and Devil. "We're under the order of the Grey Sun!" Azrael bellows as he locks into combat with Deathstroke. Devil fighting against the knights, but he is bitten from behind by Aztec. Deathstroke whirls around, kicking Azrael away, wielding a weapon of God. "This sword used to belong to an angel, Zuriel, kid. Never could get it to burst into flames, but it cuts through you folks like deli meat," he shouts, and behind them, Devil is stabbed through the chest, smiling as he uses the last of his strength to blast the head off of a vampire knight. "Devil!" Deathstroke exclaims, whirling around, kicking Azrael in the head, knocking him into the Lazarus Pit. He then turns back, readying his sword as more vampires begin to surround him. "More vampires? Fine, but I promise you, this is going to be the priciest damn meal you've ever had," he snaps. But at that moment, Azrael rises out of the pit behind him, no longer a vampire. "Deathstroke, what do you say we even the odds a little?" he asks, readying his flaming gauntlets, and their battle continues. It was later, having returned to the last base of the humans, that Kirk Langstrom finished his examination of Jean-Paul Valley, proclaiming him cured of his vampirism. He walks out, and Deathstroke asks if they can still use the pit. Can they still revive Batman? But Kurt shakes his head, explaining that it has already been used up on their vampire friend. "We were so close, I almost had him back. We need Batman." Deathstroke sighs, but Kirk looks at him. "Technically, we have a Batman." Outside, Valley is walking amongst the human survivors, coming across Bane and Mary Marvel. "Azrael, I heard you returned," Bane says. "It's a little complicated," Valley tells him, and Bane reaches for his rat on a stick. "Pity. I was looking forward to killing you." He offers Valley some meat, and Mary and Bane show him around. As they're going around seeing other heroes that have survived, including Booster Gold, they're then interrupted as Deathstroke arrives, putting his hand on Valley's shoulder, telling him that the Council wants to see him. Meanwhile, over at the entrance of Nightlight, Damage, the individual who was bitten and dropped in a crevasse, comes walking up with his hands in the air. Vigilante and Terra stand with their crossbows ready, but he calls out, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Stand down, fellow humans!" he shouts, showing his face. They step forward, surprised to see him with a healed face, and they pull out UV lights, checking him quick before letting him go. But those UV lights cause him to stumble back in pain, his face burning and smoking. Typical. I've barely had my old face back for 5 minutes, and it's already meatloaf again. He snaps, leaping forward, grabbing Terra, biting into her throat. Vigilante yells, firing, but Damage catches the arrow, and he tries to reload, but Damage rushes forward, blood splattering across the walls. At the Council, everyone watches as an astral projection of Constantine puts out a cigarette, pointing out the folly of Deathstroke trying to revive Batman on his own. It was Fleming who points out that she isn't surprised that he took the mission in secret, when the Council would have approved the idea bringing back Batman. Why did you attempt this on your own? The truth quickly comes out, that Deathstroke feels the Council has become complacent, and that he couldn't overthrow them on his own. He
he would need the help of Batman. "You traitor!" Midnighter snaps, leaping across the table, throwing Deathstroke to the ground, but it's Jean-Paul who stops the fight. Stepping forward, telling them what he knows from his time as a vampire, that they keep the humans in a blood farm in Florida. They are protected by vampire metahumans. Outside, Damage has crossed the grounds, smiling as he begins to climb up the wall to get closer to Captain Atom. But it's Booster Gold and Bane who realize what is happening. "We've been breached!" Booster shouts, flying forward to stop the vampire. "Hey, Nathaniel, just thought I'd come and say hi. You know, one living bomb to another." The explosion of Captain Atom and Damage rips through Nightlight. The destruction was near complete. Booster Gold tried to shield as many as he could, but the console was only protected because of the lead surrounding their bunker. More people died as the survivors tried to reach safety to finally arrive at the League of Assassins compound in the sewers of Chicago. The astral projection of Constantine stands before Talia al Ghul and Alfred, telling them that he sent some of the survivors away and came only with his small group. This witless band of cannon fodder. He says, "And me," Mary Marvel points out. John nods. "And Mary." He agrees, looking to the daughter of the demon, asking if they can regroup here before they go save the world. But Talia and Alfred shake their heads, knowing that John and his group will only bring ruin to the League of Assassins. It's at that moment that Deathstroke steps forward, telling her of his mishap with the Lazarus Pit, of how Azrael was cured of his vampirism. John floats forward, telling them of the blood farm in Florida, of how the sunlight there is controlled by the weather wizard, about how they are going to force him to bring the sun back. "Madness he'll never agree to," Talia says sharply, and John nods. "He will if he's not a vampire anymore. Talia, I know there's another Lazarus Pit. Tell me where it is." She stares at him for a moment before looking away. "You're welcome to freshen up and join us for dinner, John." In the sewer tunnel, several assassins turn sharply at the strange noise, but their heads are suddenly cut from their bodies. One survives, looking up in surprise at Wonder Woman and her group of vampires. Constantine, I only ever need to follow you from a discreet distance, and Banquet will always present itself," she says with a vicious smile. Inside of the fortress, John returns to his body, which has been stored by Talia for him in case of an emergency. He throws his empty pack of cigarettes to the ground, angry that his plans don't seem to be coming to fruition. It's Boston Brand who then appears before John, with John reminding the dead man to stay close, that he's his ace in the hole. They both turn as the doors of the storage room begin to bang. "You think it's them?" Dead man asks, and John nods. "I bloody hope so." He begins to work his magic, tearing the door off of the hinges, preparing to fight the vampire hordes. "If it is them, Plan H is back on," he says with a smile. Meanwhile, Jean-Paul is freshening up, getting angry with the ghost of Saint Dumas that has once again appeared in his mind. But he doesn't know that a vampire is coming up behind him. But the monster hisses as a stake is shoved through his chest. "Sneaky critters, huh? I'm Jimmy Olsen, by the way. If you're done freshening up, I think we could use you in the Great Hall," Jimmy says as he helps Valley to his feet. Over in the Great Hall, the battle has begun with the assassin and heroes cutting through the vampire hordes. Deathstroke and Midnighter using their weapons while Bane is slamming vampires into the walls, squishing them. Mary smiles as she grabs two vampires, twisting their heads off. "I think we're winning," she shouts to the group. But a vampire comes up behind Deathstroke and is then shot in the head by Jimmy. "Jimmy, I told you to stay in the locker room. This is no place for you." Slade snaps, but Jimmy smiles, telling him not to worry. But Wonder Woman is there, biting into his neck, dropping him to the ground. "Jimmy!" Mary bellows in anger, flying across the room, slamming into Wonder Woman, knocking her through several walls, lightning crackling behind her. "You shouldn't have hurt Jimmy," she growls, and John appears in the room, shouting for everyone to follow. "What about Jimmy?" Azrael asks, cradling the body of the young man, but Bane closes his eyes, telling Jean-Paul that it is time to go. The heroes continue their battle, with John finding Talia and asking her where the final pit is. "You need to tell me before it's too late," he tells her quietly, and she finally nods. He turns back to his group as the daughter of the demon leaves him, looking at Mary and asking her to break them into an exit into the tunnels. She smiles, flying forward through the wall, energy crackling around her, vampire hordes exploding in her wake. And as the rest of the group heads into the tunnels, Midnighter looks around at the destruction. "She's terrifying," he says to Bane. "I'm weightless with pride," the big man tells him. The group moves forward, but Booster Gold is grabbed from behind by Wonder Woman's lasso. Leaving your own party early, children? She asks with a smile, throwing Booster to the ground, beginning to slam her fists into his futuristic shield. I'm going to pry you out of there and eat you like an oyster, you frail little thing! She hisses. Please, my future doesn't exist anymore. I shouldn't even be here. Booster begs, and John ushers the others to escape as he follows. Using his magic to toss Wonder Woman away, he helps Booster to his feet, reminding him that he is one of the big hitters and really needs to stay alive. Go on, Michael, I'm right behind you, John says as Wonder Woman comes back at them, his hands whirling with magic again, restraints appearing to ensnare Wonder Woman, but she easily breaks free, grabbing him by the throat, beginning to choke him. Unknown to her, John's astral form leaves his body as he calls out to Deadman. I need you to possess Booster and blow up the tunnel, John tells him, and Deadman shakes his head. John, that'll kill you. Brand points out. Wonder Woman's about to eat me, Chief. I'm a goner anyway. Boston, please, if she gets the others, John says, and Deadman finally nods, taking control of Booster's body, firing his energy beams into the ceiling, blowing it up and bringing everything down around them. Water begins to pour inward, washing the vampires away, and as John allows himself to be swept away, a portal opens and Dr. Fate reaches for him. You will not die here today, John Constantine. Not here, not now. Fate has other plans for you. Booster is pulled from the tunnel, shocked by what he did, not remembering any of it. And the group of heroes look around, questioning what they should do now, with Deathstroke looking to them and readying himself. What else can we do? The things hunting us don't sleep, and all of our places of refuge are burnt. We complete the mission. Meanwhile, on the Blood Farm, Baron Cinder holds Billy Batson in his sway, using his powers of foresight to see the humans that have come for him. Let them come. We'll be waiting.
They moved across the country, fighting their way from Chicago to Florida, finally arriving outside of the Blood Farm that was their mission. It was there that they found a patch of sunlight, the thing that Weather Wizard was using to keep the remains of Swamp Thing growing, giving them the food that they needed to keep their crop of their blood farms alive. Deathstroke wants to keep moving, but a vampire creeps up behind them. And as something comes up behind it, a cord wraps around the creature's neck, and Batwoman drags it to the ground, the cord cutting through its throat and severing its head. She gets up to her feet, whirling around with her crossbow, firing it into the head of another monster. She leaps, twisting through the air, knocking another to the ground, beating it to death with the head of the first vampire. Should we do something? Azrael asks, and Booster Gold shakes his head, watching. I feel like it's under control, he says with a shrug, and Batwoman finally stops. Hey guys, what a time to be alive, she asks, smiling, showing her fangs. The heroes prepare to fight, but Batwoman throws up her arms. Hey wait, if you're gonna kill me, I'm really gonna lose my temper. Slade swings his blade, but Batwoman stops it, her skin sizzling at the touch of the holy weapon. Damian Wayne sent me! She struggles, and the heroes are shocked as Batwoman explains that she has been working with the turned Damian Wayne, that he found her when she was little more than an animal, but brought her back from the darkness, taught her to feed without killing. How do we know that this isn't a trap? Grayson is a master manipulator, just like his old man. Deathstroke asks, still holding his blade, and he looks at Azrael, who remembers that there was a bounty out for Batwoman's head. Bane steps forward, removing Deathstroke's sword. I'm not willing to give up on trust, he grumbles. Batwoman steps away, motioning to the amusement park nearby where the Blood Farm is housed, explaining that Starfire is being held captive there, and that Damian sent her to rescue the Temerian. What do you say we all quit lowering our voices and octaves and help each other out? She says with a smile. The team quickly comes up with a plan. They're going to send Deathstroke, Batwoman, Azrael, and Bane to rescue Starfire. Thus, they'll be creating a distraction that will allow Booster Gold, Midnighter, and Mary Marvel to capture Weather Wizard. The first team moves through the amusement park quickly, killing off the vampire underlings that guard the entrance to Starfire's tower. You're up, Muscles, Batwoman says, with Bane rushing forward, slamming into the door and knocking it off its hinges, squishing the vampires that get in his way. The four heroes rush forward, slashing through the vampires and fighting their way up the tower. Bane finally finds his way all the way to the top, killing a last vampire before stepping into Starfire's chambers, where she greets him, offering him to enter. Come, look at you.
How long has it been? She asks, holding out her arms. She moves forward, radioing to the others that he's found her, unaware of the woman's fangs as she opens her mouth. Meanwhile, the others are still fighting, with Deathstroke turning to see Dagon stepping through the doorway, preparing to fight, but Starfire steps up behind Dagon, burning him with candle wax. Alien filth! Dagon snaps, and Deathstroke steps forward, stabbing the vampire through the chest. Watch your mouth! Starfire moves forward, hugging Deathstroke, pointing out that he has a vampire on him. Don't worry, I'm housebroken, Batwoman assures her. Deathstroke looks down, seeing the bracelets that Baron Cinder had used to muffle Starfire's powers. He removes them as she explains that Baron Cinder is trying to use her to siphon solar energy that he could use to power himself back up, so the UV light wouldn't burn him, and he wouldn't have to wear Lex Luthor's old power armor to keep his body intact. All the power, none of the cost, Deathstroke says, nodding his head, and Batwoman holds out her hand. Princess, I have a friend who really wants to meet you, but we have to go now, she says, with Starfire turning to Slade. I think she's legit, but if you have any doubts, just incinerate her. Batwoman smiles at him. Gonna miss you too, Slade. She begins to power up, with Slade putting his hand on her shoulder. Corey, before you go, we could really use a big diversion, if you've got one in you. She nods, beginning to fly into the air. I understand. Good hunting, old man, she says, and as he watches them go, energy burns around them. You too, kid, he whispers. Bane falls to the ground, blood dripping from his neck. The woman that he thought was Starfire was really Mirage, who had used her illusion powers to fool him. She leans forward, offering to make his death stop, to make him a vampire. Whoa, just say no, Deadman says as he possesses Bane. This body's closed for business, vampire lady. I'm in charge while this thing bleeds out. Deadman in Bane's body gets up, pushing her away after introducing himself. Now, are you gonna let me walk away and let this guy croak in peace or what? But she smiles at him. I'm afraid not. But a blade at that moment cuts through her chest and she falls to the ground, looking up in shock at Azrael. The prodigal son, she gasps. Azrael is confused as Bane finally bleeds out, dropping to the floor. Mirage looks at Jean-Paul, telling him that the Grey Sun is willing to take him back, that he wishes for Azrael to be his right-hand man. The voice continues in Jean-Paul's mind as he falls to his knees. Meanwhile, Baron Cinder is preparing to reclaim his property, ordering his metahuman minions to defend the Blood Farm. By your command, Baron Cinder, they echo. Meanwhile, the trio walk towards the door of the tower, stepping on the skulls of the defeated vampires. You're really not gonna let me do it? It'll take 2 seconds, up and down, Mary Marvel says to Midnighter. But the vigilante tells her no, reminding her that the others are creating a distraction, and if she distracts from the distraction, it'll all be pointless. So with that, they open the doors, stepping into the tower, shocked by the blood farm that they find within. How many people do you think are being drained like cattle in here? Booster Gold asks. 8,438, Midnighter says without hesitation, before the trio continue forward, where they're then interrupted as the Question steps out, seemingly confused, asking them where Vic Sage is. But he is Vic Sage. Lousy son of a gun went and got us turned into a vampire. You believe that? Vic says. Midnighter steps forward, putting an arm around the man's shoulder. Hey, I'm pretty sure I saw Vic out in the swamp. You want to go check it out, maybe? Question? He asks, but the Question tells him that he can't. He was ordered to guard the store. Midnighter narrows his eyes, realizing that he can't see what Vic is going to do. The tactical computer in my brain can't account for irrational actors, he tells Booster Gold, but Vic looks at him, telling him that they don't have to worry about the Question. Not sure about these guys, though, he says, and out of the shadows steps the Baron's knights, who bear their fangs at our heroes. Meanwhile, at the distraction, Jean-Paul Valley isn't doing so well, with the system in his mind driving him insane for having been turned. But Deathstroke snaps him out of it, and the two quickly head for the exit. Outside, Starfire is flying through the air, holding Batwoman tightly. Both are being chased by the Baron and Shazam. Tell me, Batwoman, would you object to being slightly singed? Starfire asks. Meanwhile, the fight continues in the Blood Farm, with Mary Marvel managing to destroy the Shining Knight and turning her attention to the Arkham Knight, with Midnighter easily knocking Prometheus to the side, but Booster Gold is suddenly bitten by the Atomic Knight, who destroys hundreds of the blood banks to distract him. Booster! Mary Marvel shouts as she moves to help her friend, but Prometheus has snuck up behind her, using his vampire powers to bewitch Mary Marvel and force her to speak the magic word. A tear falls down her face. She whispers, Shazam! Outside, the Baron and Shazam are following Starfire. You see, Billy, how she falters. All we need to do with these brittle creatures is wait, the Baron says to his protege. I will have my light clean, even if I have to cut it out of her. He shouts as they continue to follow. Though Batwoman doesn't like Starfire's plan, Starfire drops her into the swamp before spiraling up into the air to bathe in a patch of light created by Weather Wizard. It's been so long. Finally, a drink, she says as she feels her body powering up. The Baron and Shazam have no choice but to turn away as the sunlight begins to overtake them. Find cover, Billy, quickly! The Baron shouts, but they are too late as Starfire blasts them. Back inside, Mary Marvel falls to her knees. From the floor, Booster Gold is surprised to see that she has fangs. Go ahead, Mary. Tell the nice man before his lights go out. Prometheus orders her. With tears in her eyes, she explains that she was bitten when the vampires took over, but she retreated into Mary Marvel's body, where the disease couldn't reach her. Midnighter flips down, slamming into Prometheus. Snap out of it, Mary! We need you! He shouts, and Atomic Knight moves forward to finish off Booster Gold, but the hero from the future moves his force field, putting it inside of the Knight's head, blowing it up from the inside. But Prometheus is back on his feet, exchanging blows with Midnighter. I hear you've got a tactical supercomputer built into that stupid helmet. I have one in my brain. Let's see how this fight plays out, Midnighter says, blocking another blow. The two of them step away from each other for several moments, their computers calculating the battle between them. And finally, Prometheus sighs. Fine, he snaps before blowing his own brains out. Mary Marvel steps forward. I have questions. And Midnighter merely explains that the computers did the fighting and showed them that Midnighter would win. But he suddenly looks down in shock as a hand punches through his chest from behind. Forgot about Vic. Ha! The question says from behind him. Shazam! Mary shouts, transforming and destroying Vic quickly. Luckily, Midnighter will heal, and she drags him over to Booster Gold. As Midnighter begins to cough up blood, he orders Mary to go and get the Weather Wizard. Mary flies up through the floor to find Weather Wizard at the top. He turns his vampiric gaze upon her. Okay, I'm tired and my friends are hurt. Come with me now or I start breaking stuff off. She snaps at him, but Wizard prepares his wand. What on earth makes you think I'd allow you to do that? Downstairs, Midnighter has begun to give Booster a transfusion with all of the blood around. The others show up, and Midnighter points them to where Mary went to get the Weather Wizard. The two have begun to hit each other with lightning, with Wizard wondering how they plan to stop the Baron from following them. Let him, because when he does, you're gonna be on our side. She snaps as she throws another burst of lightning at him, and the Weather Wizard pauses. Wait, you're telling me that you found a cure? Give it to me! He shouts, but his words are cut off as a blade slices through his neck. Mary Marvel stares in shock as Azrael stands over the body. They said that they'd turn me in again if I helped them. I'd be a parasitic scum, but I'd still be me. He says, removing his hood. Outside, Shazam curls up on the floor, his flesh burning as he begins to utter his magic word, but the Baron steps over to him. Don't you dare say that word. Boys run from the hurt, Billy. We supermen embrace it. The Baron says, finally revealing it's Clark Kent, his body smoking from his wounds. Time passes, the bus lurching through the darkness and running over the animalistic vampires as the heroes enter Central City. Deathstroke turns the wheel and points the bus towards the Flash Museum, remembering how Azrael had turned on them, killing the Weather Wizard and getting rid of their one hope to bring the sun back. But there was something in his eyes. As the vampire forces closed in on them, he turned again against the vampires and he fought them to the death to give the heroes time to escape and come up with another plan. The heroes finally arrive at the Flash Museum, a Weather Wizard with a sewed back on head as their cargo. You should see this place in a few hundred years. It takes up 4 city blocks. Booster Gold says, but everyone just looks around at the frozen landscape around them. Is it me, or is there fresh snow here? Booster asks, and the group moves through the museum until they come to a room dedicated to the Flash's Rogues Gallery. Mary smashes through the floor to reveal a secret chamber beneath, where the League of Shadows hid one of the last Lazarus pits in the world. Slade steps forward and prepares to drop the wizard's body into it. Come on, Slade. There's desperation, and then there's this. Using the last Lazarus pit to bring back a dead vampire? That's insane, Booster points out, but they have no choice, and Slade drops the body, the pit beginning to bubble for a moment before the weather wizard roars out of it, now a hulking vampire creature. Not one of my better ideas, apparently. Slade says, readying his sword, but the monster grabs the blade, twisting him around, biting deep into his neck with his fangs. The others then move to pull the wizard off, but the head merely tears away from the body a second time. Gah! What is this thing, a chihuahua? Get it off me! Slade shouts as the head continues to bite him, but Mary grabs a hold of it, burning it away. Slade stumbles as the blood pours out of his neck and Booster catches him. I'm sorry. I had to try. Realizing that they have to stop the bleeding, Mary Marvel picks up Slade's god sword. It begins to glow with holy fire, and she presses it against the wound. How did you get it to work? Slade asks her. It's an angel's sword, dummy. I just had faith, she says with a smile. Slade is surprised, not knowing that she was religious, but Mary explains that she merely had faith in him. The group moves outside, still surprised by the fresh, clean snow that has seemingly been falling. Midnighter wants to keep fighting, but Slade shakes his head. We have to be realistic. This is our only shot, he says as the group stops to look at the statues in the museum. So we reload, one way or another. This is going to end tonight, Midnighter says stubbornly. The roof suddenly explodes with a bolt of lightning, and the group looks up as Shazam floats down towards them. Here you are, you tricksy little vermin. Or are you about to get here? I get confused sometimes. Mary glares up at her brother. Go, all of you. This is a family matter, she says. Slade isn't so sure, but Mary gives him a hug. I'll be fine. Even if you wanted to help me, you're hurt. This has to be my fight. Midnighter's right. You all have to fix the world. Do what you do and find a way, she says, and he nods as the others turn to go. The two rush at each other, with Shazam punching Mary hard enough to draw blood. As the other heroes limp away, they can hear and see the two forces of lightning clashing behind them. She needs our help, Slade shouts as he tries to pull away from the others. Slade, in my experience, the last place you want to be when gods are fighting is in their way. The three head off into the snowstorm, looking for the source of the strange weather. It's not natural. There's no way it could be. I'm betting all answers are in there, Midnighter says, pointing to the snowy Central City Park. Meanwhile, over at the city, Mary and Billy continue to trade blows back and forth, with Mary happy that she barely recognizes her brother. It makes this so much easier, she says as she hits him again, but he catches her next blow, throwing her through the Flash statue, slamming her into the ground. You can't beat me, Mary! It's hopeless! Everything you are flows from me, Billy tells her as he floats down on her. Mary, I'm stronger than you! He tells her with a vampiric smile, but Mary stands up quickly, grabbing a hold of Billy in a hug. I'm sorry, Billy. I truly am. Shazam! She says, and lightning falls from the sky, the bolt hitting them both, and Billy suddenly standing in darkness, a young boy once again. Hello? Is anyone there? I think I'm having a terrible nightmare. Can someone help me? He calls out, and Mary comes up behind him, once more a vampire, and offers to help him, pulling him into a hug. Tears fall from Billy's eyes as he tells her that he can't remember everything, but he knows it's bad. No more nightmares ever again. I promise, she tells him, opening her mouth and lowering her fangs onto Billy's neck. In Central Park, the trio have discovered the source of the cold. A frozen Captain Cold stares at them from a block of ice, his gun continuing to fire and create a snowstorm. What did I tell you about following the cold? Midnighter says, and the group is interrupted as Mary walks towards them, blood dripping from her face. Guys, I've done something really bad, and I need you to do something for me. I need you to kill me, she whispers to them. You see, it was after the Flash disappeared, the criminals took to the streets, creating an old-fashioned crime wave. But then the vampires appeared, and Captain Cold was bitten. Rather than turn, he decided to turn his cold gun on himself, making sure to freeze his body so that he wouldn't become one of the monsters. "And then you dummies thawed me out," Cold shouts at the heroes after he finishes his story. "You're so welcome," Booster says sarcastically, and Midnighter helps him to his feet, and the group turn to see Slade and Mary sitting together. "Who's the kid? Is it take your vamp to work day today?" Cold asks, and Booster steps up next to him. "Believe it or not, that's our big gun." Slade puts his arm around Mary. "I told you, kid. I can't do that. Now stop asking me." Slade tries to tell her, but she thinks that she is a monster now. "I killed Billy, Slade. Not as Mary Marvel either. I killed him as a vampire, and God help me, I want more." But a spectral shape suddenly appears before them all. "Oi! Stop moping and break out the eggnog, you lot. It's all looking a bit bloody festive around here, isn't it, lads?" The spectral form of Constantine asks. "So where's Weather Wizard?" Constantine asks, as he takes a drag out of his cigarette. But back over at the Flash Museum, Superman has landed, looking for Billy, but he merely finds the body of a young boy. "Oh, Billy, you cast off your armor. We could have broken worlds together had you not faltered. But I will do this for you now. I shall break the ones who hurt you," the Man of Steel says, his body still smoking from the wounds from Starfire. Over in the park, the group has just finished telling Constantine everything that happened. The wizard isn't happy, shouting at the group for ruining the last plan that they had. "I've got a Supergirl in Australia waiting for the sun to come up so that she can top off her tan and take the fight to the biters," he snaps. "I can do that," Cold says as he raises his hand at the back of the group. "I've got Damian working to undermine Grayson's whole operation from the inside." Constantine continues as if he didn't hear the rogue, but Cold shouts again, telling them that he can freeze the ash out of the sky long enough for Supergirl to charge her batteries. "Okay, why didn't anyone let Captain Cold speak first?" Constantine snaps after a brief pause. The spectral wizard then goes to Mary, telling her that he needs her to fly Cold to Australia, but she is barely listening, looking up at the sky where a t-shirt floats down at them. Slade grabs it out of the air, holding it out to her. "That's Billy's sweater." "He's here," she says, and Slade looks at her a moment. "Billy? Not Billy." Superman lands with a thud among them, cracking the concrete beneath him, scattering our heroes. "We don't stand a chance, do we?" Booster asks as Midnight stares at the Man of Steel, his computer brain calculating the fight. "None whatsoever," Midnighter tells him. Booster looks at him again and asks what they do, but Midnighter doesn't hesitate, launching into an attack, kicking the Man of Steel. "We try anyway! He's weakened! Hit him hard, don't let up!" Midnighter shouts to the group, and Slade whirls in with his sword, slicing at the Man of Steel. But Superman catches the blade, tossing him away. Midnighter comes in fast, stabbing Superman with a wooden stake, but the wood cracks on his chest. Superman grabs the hero by the throat. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but Princess Coriander gave me a burst of sunlight during her escape. I may not be at my best, but you'll find that I'm very far from my worst." He grabs a hold of Midnighter's legs and rips the hero in half, throwing the body away. But his head begins to twist and Superman drops to his knees. What have you done?" He gasps in pain, and Booster Gold steps forward. "Force field's in your skull, little ones. I'm shutting you down for good," he shouts, but Superman merely looks at him with burning eyes. A slash of red appears across Booster's chest, falls to the ground in separate pieces. Slade leaps in once more at the Man of Steel, sword ready. "Will you just die?" Superman whirls, punching the ground, Shockwave throwing Slade away. Mary shouts for him and runs forward with Superman turning to her. "You! I can smell Billy's blood on your breath," he says, and Mary has no choice, transforming once again. She leaps forward as Mary Marvel, punching Superman in the chest. She moves forward, continuing her onslaught, hammering into his face. "You were supposed to be the one to put it right! You were supposed to be the one to save us!" she shouts as she begins to burn him with magic, but he blasts her with heat vision, punching her away. He stalks forward. He lifts her off the ground. "Please, don't," she whispers as a magic blade pierces through Superman's chest. He gasps in surprise, dropping Mary Marvel to the ground, looking at the magic blade. "You forgot the first rule, Boy Scout. Never turn your back on me unless you're absolutely sure I'm dead," Slade tells him. Tears begin to fall out of Superman's eyes as he drops to the ground. Mary moves to Slade. "I thought you were gone," she says with a smile, and Slade slumps in her arms. "Are you kidding me? That guy, he punches like a barista." He gasps as she looks at him with concern, reaching up and pulling off the mask. "I made the goofy angel sword work. Did you see? It worked because I believed in you," he whispers, and Mary holds him close. "Please don't leave me alone, Slade, please," she whispers, but Slade's head lulls down to her shoulder. "It's okay, kid. You'll be," he whispers, but his words die out with his final breath. Captain Cold moves up to help her, lowering Slade to the ground next to Midnighter. Mary wants to bury the bodies, but Constantine points out that they don't know how long it'll be before Cold turns. "The blizzard will last a little longer. It'll cover them real good, I promise. It'll cover all of them," Snart tells her softly. She finally nods, taking a hold of him and leaping up and flying away. "Godspeed, love," Constantine says as he watches them fly away. A few moments pass. Constantine seemingly alone. "Good work, mate," he says as Deadman floats up from the ground next to him. "You're not gonna tell her that it was me and Slade's body just now?" Deadman asks, and Constantine shakes his head. "Nope," he tells his friend, and with that, they both disappear. The snow continuing to fall from the sky, covering the death on the ground, blanketing everything in fresh powder, as if it never happened. But something begins to stir. Midnighter sits up, looking around in shock, his body already well on the way to healing itself. "Hello?" he calls out in surprise. And there you have it, today's full story. I hope you guys enjoyed, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell right here on this channel, as it will only ever be receiving full stories from the other channel. And if you want to see the videos as they come out, make sure you go check out the Comicstorian main channel, where you get 5 days of videos a week. I'll see you next time.